Hello, everyone. My name is Art McDermott. I'm hosting the webinar today. A little bit about my background. I am originally from the strength and conditioning field, but I'm also a certified nutritionist. I learned very early on that if I didn't learn about nutrition, my clients weren't going to make a whole lot of progress, and we'll talk about that a little bit today for sure. I did put a note in the chat box, and hopefully you have access to that. If you have any questions at all, please feel free to put it in there, and I will make sure that I get to it. And so right now, just a little bit more about me before we jump in there. I'm also an online health and wellness coach. So I work through these questions, the topic we're going to go through today, pretty much on a daily basis with my clients. So again, I've got a reasonable amount of experience with this, so that's why I always encourage people to ask questions, because what I found is that the best information comes out during the questions, not so much just wandering through the slides at all. Okay, so definitely feel free to stop, interrupt. We'll go on tangents. That's all of that works out for the best, and we get the best information out there to you. So let's jump right into this and get going. So just make sure that I get my screen cleared here. Today we're going to talk about Workday workouts. It can be very, very challenging, as we all know, to be fit, especially if you have long hours, maybe long commutes, the whole thing. It's all tied together. And we want to make sure we can address each of those issues and how do you really stay fit in the workplace. So let's jump right into it. Here's what we're going to do for objectives today. We're going to understand why exercise is vital. And of course, we all know exercise is good for you. Yeah. But what are the real reasons? What are the beyond the obvious? We're going to talk about that a little bit. We're going to learn how to easily make exercise a part of your daily life. And we're going to talk about the fact that once it goes from being a chore to just part of what you do is a really powerful transition. We're going to understand the type of exercise you should be doing and how often. And you'd be amazed at how often people get confused on a very straightforward topic like this. They don't quite know where to start, so they don't start at all. We're going to discover why eating nutritiously is just as important as sweating often. The two should be inseparable. And we're going to learn some things you can do throughout your workday to stay fit. So let's jump right in and start talking about why exercise at all. You can become better physically, obviously. That's the most obvious and apparent result from exercise. Maybe it's weight loss, right? Maybe it's muscle tone and the arms and how you look in clothes. That's the obvious stuff, right? But it also impacts how you can become better mentally. There's a lot of studies that we're going to talk about. That studies are showing that people who exercise frequently have better mental health than those who do not. And sadly, because of over the last, let's say, 100 to 150 years or less, we've gone from a very physical, laborious lifestyle to one where being sedentary is the norm. Right? So, and then our bodies don't like that. Our bodies are kind of freaking out by that a little bit. And so we're going to see how we can maybe embrace that physical side a little bit more. And obviously and this is a thing that people don't consider very often, is that exercise can prevent injury. Now that would seem obvious, but it also prevents disease. It is a powerful impact on your immune system. A sedentary lifestyle is a trigger for lots of diseases like type 2 diabetes, hypertension, etc. And we'll dive into all of those. So it goes way beyond just the obvious thing of, oh, I know I need to exercise to feel better, right? There's a lot more to it than that. So let's talk about some of the physical benefits. Exercise will increase your sturdiness and resilience. Now, that may sound vague, but those are very, very factual type of terms. If you have more resilience, it's going to make you more capable and less prone to injury. So what does that mean? I like to call this having more reserves. Okay, when you exercise often, you increase your reserves, meaning this: when life throws something at you, it could be an injury, it could be an illness, it could be just an extremely stressful occurrence, right? It could be a surgery. In fact, my mother had surgery on her hip this morning at the age of 80, all right? And she's very sturdy, has a lot of resilience, and I already spoke with her on the phone, and she sounds great, and they expect to have her up and walking around today. So that's the type of thing that exercise can do for you, and increasing those reserves and that resilience, all right? It's going to bring you closer to your ideal weight. Now, this is very important because a lot of studies are showing that the more we drift away from our ideal weight, the more likely we are to have some of these disease conditions that we've already mentioned. And and BMI is probably the most commonly known indicator of what your ideal weight should be. Now, keep in mind though, if you've got a past that's based in exercise and weightlifting, the BMI becomes less and less accurate over time. What they're finding is that it gives false results. So, and also what they're finding is that if you lose as little as 5% of your overall body weight, that you can have significant health improvement. You're also going to help improve your posture with regular physical exercise. You're going to stimulate those muscles that are directly responsible for your posture and improving that posture, which is going to lead to decreases in back pain, etc. You're also going to you're going to be less prone to a plethora of ailments, illnesses, and diseases by staying physically active. Our immune system is based on the tendency and the need for our bodies to stay very active. And like I said, recent history, when we went to a much more sedentary lifestyle, that's when you started to see the emergence of all these disease conditions and illnesses that you never saw before, right? When it was a very physical lifestyle, right? So let's look at the mental benefits of this. This is something, again, that people can tend to what I call compartmentalize the mental side of things and the physical side of things as if they are not related. But you cannot separate the two. That is that mind-body connection that you hear about so much. So let's talk about the number one issue that I see in clients and people, particularly I deal with the over 45 age group. Stress is the number one concern for this age group. And unfortunately, it's spreading through across the society in all age categories. So exercise relieves stress and anxiety. You often hear that, oh, I'm very stressed, I worked it out at the gym, right? It's very, very true. Why? Because our bodies were meant to do that, right? We were meant to run and jump and drag and throw and lift and all these things that we stopped doing. So when we get back to that, our body really likes it. Our body really feels good about it. And this decreases our stress, and which is kind of directly related, of course, to our anxiety levels. If we don't exercise, those kind of things can build up because they don't have a physical outlet, right? It does make you happier, as you may have heard. Exercise does release the feel-good kind of hormones like dopamine and things like that, and all those endorphin kind of categories of drugs in the brain, let's call them chemicals for the brain, okay? And it does actually enhance brain power. We're going to talk about type of exercises in a minute, but people, no matter what exercise you do, your brain likes it, right? People who exercise regularly have healthier brains. They are much more resistant to things like dementia over time. It certainly does improve memory. If you have a high level of stress, you may have noticed when you're under stress, your memory suffers. You can't remember where you put things. You can't remember things that you did or said or other people did or said because when you're under stress, those memories don't get ingrained to your brain as quickly or as well, as deeply. All right. It does improve focus. What you often see is these very, very successful, if you read these studies like I do, you see the habits of highly successful people generally involve some type of physical fitness and usually first thing in the morning, which is interesting. So, and that's tend to, when a lot of people, I always recommend that you wake up first before you do anything else and get some exercise in. It changes your entire day. Another mental benefit is your enhanced attitude will improve your personal and work relationships. Of course, if you have less stress, if you're happier, if your brain is working better, and if you have better memory and focus, well, of course, it necessarily follows that you're going to have better relationships, better interactions with those around you, right? Both at home and in the workplace. So, how do you use exercise to change your life positively? Number one is do it often. There are a lot of standards that are out there now. I've seen standards from as little as about an hour a week, which is definitely at the low end of what should be the normal, to as high as if you went over, for example, 6 hours a week. You have a lot of people who work out considerably more than that, and it starts to have almost a decreasing return on it. Okay, you reach that optimum level where you have diminishing returns. So there's a nice balance there that we'll talk about in a minute. But you do need to be consistent is the key. And do it correctly. There's a lot of different types of modalities out there, right? There's boxing, and there's running, and there's lifting weights, and there's yoga, and all of these things. It needs to be done correctly. Make sure you know what you're doing. You're not going to go off to the gym and start lifting heavy weights with poor technique, right? That's not going to last very long. Yoga, if unless properly instructed, is not going to get anywhere near the benefits that it could. And you have to also do it with a great attitude. Again, we're going to touch on that more, but if you look upon exercise as drudgery, that is what you'll get, right? And something that people don't tend to track. Now, I've done this for so long that it kind of comes to me as second nature, but I would strongly recommend if you're going to exercise that you track it. Now, there's so many great apps out there to let this happen that it's really a no-brainer. You don't have to carry a log around with you anymore, right? Well, with pen and paper. You can track it all online. In fact, they probably do most of it on your watch now. So tracking your progress is key because you don't know where you're going. You don't know if you're improving unless you track what you're doing. Okay? Again, if you have any of this, I'm going to start to say, and I intentionally do this, because I read so many studies and stay up on this, is because of it's my livelihood. I may throw something out there that is contrary to what you read or heard. And if you hear something like that, then by all means throw it in the chat box, and I will try to answer that question. So here's a very tricky one. Surprisingly few people are aware of these kind of numbers. How often should you exercise? Well, you should do so. I like to say you should do something physical every day. But formal exercise sessions, you should do most days of the week, most being at least 4. And if you can do 4 to 5, then that's even better. Most lifestyles are sedentary except for deliberate exercise. That is, most people aren't out there chopping wood or dragging things around or doing physical labor. We go to a workplace that doesn't involve a lot of strenuous effort. And then unless we go to the gym, we go home and we cook food and we sit down and work. And so we will go for days, weeks, months, and even years, or sometimes in the worst case scenario, you go decades without doing any deliberate exercise. And that's the problem. That's the point they're trying to make there. The length of the session, 20 minutes to 2 hours per day. Now, 2 hours, in my opinion, is excessive. A lot of research is pointing to the fact that an hour a day is optimal. 45 minutes to an hour, skew on that side. 20 minutes is probably the base level. I have some very strenuous workouts that I do or recommend to clients that last no longer than 20 to 25 minutes, warm-up included. So, but they are effective. In fact, some research shows that you can get a health benefit from as little as 10 minutes a day. Although you're rolling the dice at how consistent you're going to be at that. I mean, how many different muscle groups can you really exercise in 10 minutes? So there's a lot of questions on that one. But you want to target that 20 minutes to 45 minutes to an hour kind of range, all right? Sometimes a short workout is necessary, and other days allow for a longer bike ride. And you want to keep the shorter workouts, you want to keep them more intense. The longer workouts, you almost treat as mental and physical recovery, right? If you're trying to accomplish more, do more, right? Your body will catch up with you over time for all those workouts and things that you don't do. There will be a cost to that eventually. Right? And as I said, do something physical every day. Be active every day. Get up and move and get out of the house. Walk around, garden, mow the lawn, plan a night out dancing. All of these things are viable physical activities that we should be doing more of. Again, because of the distractions that we have now in society, it's very easy to go a long period of time without paying attention to ourselves and our bodies. Right? Because there's always another video to watch. There's always another email to answer. So unless you intentionally block off that time, it's very likely you get pushed to the back burner, which is I see all too often. So exercising correctly, we talked about that, right? So it's vital to avoid injury and continue making progress. Our bodies want continually to be challenged. That is, if I'm doing 20 body weight squats, and I do that 3 days a week, after a few weeks, very short period of time, our body says, oh, 20 squats, well, I can do that pretty easily now. That's not really much of a challenge. And there's a diminishing return for that exercise. So you need to change it up and do something different. And it needs to be done correctly, proper technique. That is, you wouldn't do a weighted squat with rounded back and poor technique and and going to your toes, all these technical things that you can go wrong. You need to learn to do this stuff correctly. And thankfully, with the presence of YouTube, you can learn how to do pretty much virtually every exercise correctly just by watching a few instructional videos there. I definitely recommend that. Don't fear new things. Just seek out the guidance, right? Use the books and magazines and apps and DVDs and trainers and coaches to help you learn the proper way to exercise. And one of the best ways is, like I said, I would strongly recommend two things. Watch videos to learn how to do it correctly. Our body reacts very well to that. And number two, get a coach, get an instructor to work with you to make sure you're on the right track. You don't need to be perfect, just aim for progress for all the reasons that I just discussed. Now, do focus on form and use proper equipment, the right sneakers, the right shorts, the sports bra, the mouthpiece, weightlifting gloves if you like. They can make or break a workout. Safety and comfort are essential. Remember, if you're not comfortable doing any of these, then you're probably not going to come back, right? If you have the wrong shoes on and they're really uncomfortable as you're on the treadmill, it's like, well, how often are you going to put your body through that and get back on the treadmill again? Not very often, right? So make sure that everything feels good when you're out there and actually executing it. All right. Have the right attitude. Sometimes in life, your attitude is one of the few things you can control. I did a presentation recently on the reduction of stress and how to deal with stress and being resilient. And sometimes if it's a work situation, a family situation, life just gets in the way and you often can't control those events. But what you can control is your reaction to them. So decide in advance that exercise is good. Dreading it will likely deter you from doing it in the future, just like having the wrong shoes on, right? If you visualize in your head this drudgery of exercise, that's what you're going to get. Now, psychologically, they say it takes anywhere from 21 days to about 75 days for exercise to go from mentally thinking of it this way, from, oh gosh, this is something I got to do, to, yeah, it's just something I do. It's just part of my life. And you don't even think about it anymore, right? You just get up and the next thing you know, the workout's over and you're on with your day. So that transition is very powerful though, right? It goes from drudgery to something you actually eventually will look forward to doing, and your body craves because it likes all those positive things that exercise does for us that used to be natural, now are not. Okay. Now, not all exercise has to be miserable. Some people think that if they don't beat themselves into the ground doing a vicious workout, that they're not getting something from it. Well, no, in fact, just the opposite. Not only are you risking getting injured, but your attitude towards the workout and towards exercise changes, right, to something negative if it's that torturous. So make sure you're mindful of that. It should be a positive experience, not a negative one. And keep your end goal in mind. Remember that nothing else can bring you all the good of exercise. Reaching your goal is worth the effort. Nothing else can bring you all the good of exercise. So now what does that mean really? Keeping your end goal in mind means, well, if your goal, for example, is to lose weight, I'll pick a common example. Well, you need to be doing the right things to do that. If you're older, you probably need to be lifting weights because your metabolism has slowed down because you've lost so much muscle mass. If you're younger and you're looking to lose weight, studies show that cardio exercise is the fastest route. So you have to know that ahead of time. If you're really anxious to have good-looking arms because you're going to a wedding in 6 months, well, weightlifting is probably your solution, right? And then if you feel like stress is really the thing that dominates your life, well, then maybe yoga is the right answer. So keep your goal, your end goal in mind as you're selecting some of these exercises, okay? Again, all you participants out there, I'm not sure who's hopped on since we started, but I just want to pause here for a second and say, please ask questions. If we skipped over something about that amount of exercise or anything along those topics that we've already mentioned, please, by all means, throw a question in the chat box and I can get to that right away. This is, after all, my wheelhouse. I grew up doing this kind of thing. That's why I love doing this webinar. It's one of my favorites. So now let's shift gears. We'll talk about setting attainable goals. If you don't have a goal to your exercise routine, then you really don't know where you're going, right? You have to have a fixed goal in mind, and we'll talk about that. Now, I'll give you an example in a minute. Once we walk through these criteria, I'll give you an example of a poor goal and an example of a great goal. All right, number one, decide what you want to accomplish. Is it lose weight? Is it to run a race like a 5K or something, right? Is it to get your flexibility or improve your flexibility, get that back? Becoming pain-free as you get older, that's certainly going to move up the priority list, right? It's your body, your goals, set those that matter to you, not somebody else, right? That should be important to you, otherwise you're not going to stick with it. And you need to schedule your workouts like any other priority appointment. If you have a meeting in the workplace, if you have an appointment with a doctor, do you blow those off and not even think about it? Of course not. You can't. There are repercussions for doing that. And you need to treat your workouts the same way. It's okay to make yourself a priority. You must commit to be fit. It has to be just as important to you as anything else on your agenda. Food shopping, paying the bills, all those things that you're obligated to do. You can't blow off your monthly mortgage because you don't feel like it. You just can't do it. There are repercussions for that. So the same thing needs to be true for yourself, your health, and your workouts. And I'm telling you right now, as we mentioned already, in a very short period of time, this will become a part of your life, not something you have to do and that you dread. Utilize supportive resources for accountability. As mentioned already, there's a lot of apps out there to do that. Have a workout buddy. Join particular clubs. Have coworkers, form teams, and social media can help you stay on track. In fact, just before this call, I was on a Facebook group that was my demographic, and it was just really supportive, really a great site. And I think it's called Fitness Over 40 or Beyond 40 and Fit or something along those lines. Those are support resources that help with accountability. The apps are great. I personally love an individual as your support system. In fact, studies have shown here that people who have a support system like we're talking about are twice as likely to succeed as those who don't. And this applies for things like smoking cessation, weight loss, everything. So the support services are key. Coworkers are great because, well, let's face it, we actually spend more time with our coworkers than we do with our family very often. So having a really good group in there is also very, very helpful. And again, track your progress. It couldn't be any easier now to do that. If you're not getting closer to your goal, reevaluate your plan. Find out why. If you've gone 2-3 months, you've set a weight loss goal, you've gone 2 or 3 months without losing a pound, well, there's going to be a reason, right? There's a habit in there that's undermining you. There is someone maybe who's undermining you. You have that friend who says, oh, to heck with exercise. Come on, let's go out and grab an ice cream and some drinks or pizza or whatever it is. And that's undermining your goal. So you need to reevaluate the priority there. But make sure if you're, looking to weight loss and all you do is maybe take yoga, yoga is great for stress reduction, mobility, balance, all those things, muscular endurance, but it may not be your ideal solution for weight loss. So again, don't be afraid to reevaluate your plan if you're not on target. Exercising on company time. I've run quite a bit of corporate boot camps in my day. We would go on site and run a 30-minute class, and we would warm up for about 8 minutes. I'd walk through the exercises for the day and the routine, and then we would go through the workout and be done within 30 minutes. All right. So people liked to do this because it was we did it at noon every day, and a couple of days a week, and people liked that because it was during the workday. They didn't have to get up super early to do it before work. They didn't after work. People tend to be extremely busy. They got to get home. They got to cook dinner for themselves or others. It's really a tough time. So having that midday thing was a great solution for this crowd. And here are some other options. You can take walking meetings and brainstorm on the go. This is very common. Now, this is obviously a lot easier, we should say, in the nicer weather. Depending on where you live, that may or may not be an option all times of the year. Stretching at your desk. Sitting in front of a computer forces a certain posture. And if you're not aware of that, whether you're just good or bad, then there could be long-term muscular and joint repercussions. Stretching at your desk, and we're going to take a look at a couple in just a minute here, but that's an easy solution, something you can certainly do while you're on the phone, while you're using the computer. There's a lot of things while you're just sitting there taking a break you can do at your desk. We'll take a look at that. Strength train in privacy. That is a couple of push-ups here and there, a couple of lunges here and there. I have a friend of mine who has a ritual that he goes through every day, and he does it at work. You just find a conference or whatever, and it takes him just like 5 minutes. But it basically wakes him up. It recharges the brain, gets the blood flowing, and he goes back to his desk feeling great. And this is an important one, this last point here. Get up every 20 to 30 minutes to stretch. I strongly recommend that. Now, there are a lot of cultures in a lot of workplaces that if you're not sitting at your desk diligently working away, you must be some kind of slacker. Well, the science doesn't back that up. What it actually says is people who get up and move every 20, 30, maybe at the most 45 minutes to get up, walk around, stretch, get the blood flowing again, those people who don't do that are actually less productive. Right? The mind gets stale, the thought process slows down and gets sluggish. The people who get up and move and get the blood flowing every 20 to 30 minutes are more productive, more creative in their solutions than people who don't. So don't get pulled into that a negative or really contrarian culture that says if you get up a lot from your desk that you're somehow working less. That is a fallacy and a myth that hopefully is not prevalent in your workplace. And eating well is of equal importance. So we're going to shift gears and talk nutrition here. 80% of weight management is eating habits. I'll read that again. 80% of weight management is eating habits. That means now you can't be fit without exercise, but you can be lean. So there's a lot that goes with that statement right there. So can you be lean, that is the right body weight, without exercise? Yes. Now, how much of that is muscle mass loss is very, very debatable. But I knew, as I mentioned in the very beginning of this call, that I knew my clients are going to see better results the more I know about nutrition. So I could be the greatest coach in the world, have the toughest, most ruthless workouts you've ever seen, but it's really only 20, maybe 25% of the solution. The rest is nutrition, right? And this is a great expression, this next line here. You can never exercise off reckless eating. That is, I've heard a phrase another way where I like, it's easy to remember, you can't out-train a bad diet. That is, a lot of my colleagues prefer that one. That's a great way to think about it. That is, if you're going to these awesome CrossFit workouts and you're just dragging yourself out the door because it was so hard and it was so vicious, and then you take yourself to go have some pizza, well, that's probably not the best solution, and it's going to be no mystery why you don't make the progress, right? It takes about 5 minutes to eat 500 calories. It's a great stat. It takes 2 hours to burn that off. Here's another stat to add to that. It takes about 20 minutes for the signal to go from, let's say, from your stomach, call it, to your brain to say, hey, I'm full. Now, I don't know about you, but I can eat a lot of food in 20 minutes. If it takes 5 minutes to eat 500 calories, I'm quite certain I could finish an entire pizza in 20 minutes. I'm sure of it, right? Now, there's got to be, in a full-size pizza, it could be anywhere from 1,500 to 2,000 calories there. So that was, for some people, that's an entire day's worth of caloric intake in about 20 minutes, right? Which is obviously an unhealthy approach. Healthy foods give you energy and strength for exercise. If you put junk in, you're going to get junk out. Your body needs high quality food to do its best. You can't put junk. You wouldn't put junk oil or bad gasoline into your car. Don't put junk food into your body. There's a lot to this, and that is not just platitudes right there. Processed foods, and particularly sugary stuff and processed wheat. Those are the two biggest culprits. People who eat a lot of those foods are very sluggish, even though they may get a burst of energy from the sugar. It quickly drops down once insulin and all blood sugar does its job. As blood sugar plummets again, there's sluggishness. You get that 230 ramp down where you just want to fall asleep at your desk. All of that is based on nutrition. Of course, there's some quality sleep issues in there, but the vast majority of this is nutrition. And drink plenty of water. I actually did a talk this morning on water intake. That whole cliche you've heard about drinking 8 glasses of water a day, that's a great place to start, in my opinion. What they're saying is that actually probably going to be much more than that. I keep a very large 32-ounce plastic cup on my desk, in arm's reach, and make sure I'm sipping water all day long. Very, very important. So let's look at the components of a well-rounded workout plan. Now, keep in mind at the end, we're going to have a little bit of time and allow a few minutes for questions. If you didn't want to ask them at the beginning, you can certainly ask them at the end. Just jot them down. And again, I throw down a lot of information, so hopefully you've jotted down some notes, and maybe we can come back to those and answer those questions. But right now, we're going to jump into what a well-rounded workout plan looks like. As a general rule, it has these four elements. It has a cardiovascular element, a strength element, flexibility, and balance. Let's look at those very quickly. Depending on what point of your life you're at, these will vary in their importance, right? For example, when I was younger as an athlete, any athlete, right, they may be way far more concerned with their strength levels and their fitness levels. As they age and the strength level becomes less important because they're not a competitive athlete anymore, cardio may become more important. Somebody who has limited range of motion is going to prioritize flexibility over the other things. If, for example, they happen to be a really dedicated practitioner of yoga, flexibility is going to be important to them because they want to be good at yoga. And as we age, balance certainly becomes much more important than it is when you're 20s, when by definition you probably have better balance. Anyway, you're not thinking about, boy, did I get my balance workout in today? Yet, if you're 65, that could definitely be the priority, right? So you can see how that changes over time, but they should touch on some element of those four, right? Let's look at each one of them individually very quickly. Cardio, great for the lungs, heart, and muscular endurance. That is the cardiovascular terminology you hear so much about. It should make you huff and puff. That is, a leisurely walk doesn't cut it, but you don't have to do sprints either. As with many things, the answer lies in the middle somewhere. Train at a moderate to vigorous pace that you can handle. Right now, here's how do you know what that is? Well, if you've got a little bit of experience, let's look at a treadmill, for example. If you use the handles, all those treadmills now tell you your heart rate. You can, with very little experience, learn to find out what heart rate you say, you know what, that feels really challenging to me. I don't feel comfortable pushing it much over this, but that's a really, really strenuous workout. And then as you come back down, you slow down, you try to recover, get your breath back. You can do the same thing to find out, like, okay, I feel recovered and now I'm ready to go again. What have you done? You've just learned what an interval workout is. Okay, you go up, you get your heart rate very elevated, so you're comfortable maybe for 45 seconds, and then you let it come back down to where you feel recovered and you're ready to go again. That's what interval training is, right? And that's a it's as simplistic an approach as you could possibly get. And you want to target, for example, for every segment of work, have 2 segments of rest. If I'm going to go really hard for 45 seconds, maybe I slow it down for a minute and a half or more till I feel recovered and then go again. And overall, you want to aim for at least 15 to 60 minutes during any given workout of cardio-based activity. 60 minutes is on the higher end, certainly, but if you are skewing towards a runner, you're likely to be a recreational runner or rower or some type of endurance-based activity, that's going to be the norm for you, which is great. And definitely the 15 minutes during any workout, that's probably a minimum. Now keep in mind, weightlifting does actually have a cardio basis to it. And you can use, if you shorten the rest periods in between your sets and your exercises, you definitely have a cardio workout using strength training. So there's a lot of different ways we can do it, right? The classic examples, running, cycling, swimming, dancing, and soccer. Find something that you like to do. For example, if you don't like any of those, if you're not a runner, getting on a bike bores you, you don't really have access to a swimming pool, you're not going to dance, and soccer is out, right? Because you need people to play soccer with at a field, all of that. Well, rowing might be your answer, right? Jumping rope could be your answer. Find something you like to do and do more of it. Now let's take a look at strength training. And I'm going to tell you right up front, I'm a little biased towards strength training. Why? Because I've read the studies and I see the benefits of it. We'll talk about those right now. Muscular strength and overall sturdiness. I love the use of that word there, right? It does make you sturdy. You're the one, if you're strength training regularly, you're the one who can help out carrying things and moving the furniture and shoveling the walkway. You have that type of sturdiness and resilience to you if you do consistent strength training. It should make you grunt. Okay, that's an interesting level of assessment there. Okay, in order to grow stronger, you have to tax your muscles. Don't lift too much, just enough to challenge your body. Let me give you an example. Right, your body likes to go to what's called momentary muscular fatigue. That is, you're doing arm curls with dumbbells. You should get to the point like, all right, well, I can't do another rep. I need to put these down. Okay, that's momentary muscular failure. It's going to get you to that quote grunt level, and your muscles want that in order to grow. If you can pick up a set of dumbbells and you can rattle off 20 repetitions, probably too light for you, right? You're probably not getting the muscle stimulation that you want. What is an ideal range, you might ask? All right, I tell my clients that you should look for anywhere from 8 repetitions up to 10 repetitions or 12. I like 12 as the upper level. So what does that mean? If I can lift a weight and I get to rep number 12 and I could easily do 5 more, it's too light. I have to go up. My body is telling me this is not enough resistance for you. Do more. And if I couldn't get to 8 repetitions, your body's telling you, hey, this is too heavy. Lower the weight a little bit. So let that rep range determine how much weight you use, not anything else, okay? Now work each muscle group frequently, but avoid working the same muscle 2 days in a row. That's a nice rule of thumb right there. They say the optimum time is to wait about 3 to 4 days before hitting the exact same muscle group. Again, you want to wait about 4 days, sometimes even 5, if you're lifting with a high degree of intensity. Now you can use weights, you can bands, you can do body weight like push-ups. Kettlebells are excellent. They're very, very popular right now. Every gym pretty much has kettlebells these days. They're all excellent choices. Again, just like the cardio stuff, find something you prefer. Find a way that you like to do it. All right. And strength training, keep this in mind, it makes you less prone to injury. And if you don't have enough reason from all of this to do weightlifting, some of the current studies say that it actually improves brain health, that it has an anti-aging effect on the brain, which is super important, right? So it's going to make you less likely to suffer losses in brain health, make you predisposed to dementia and the decreases in brain function that we all face as we get older. Flexibility. Now, stretching increases muscular elasticity. It should make you wince. Now, I'm going to put an asterisk next to that word wince there, right? Here's what I would tell clients. Stretching should make you uncomfortable, not painful. It should be uncomfortable, not painful. All right. When stretching, you should reach a point beyond complete comfort, certainly. When you feel a pull and wince a little bit, you've gone too far. Well, yeah, you're going to learn very quickly how far you should be going, how far you shouldn't. Now, a couple of warnings, right? That's going to change if your muscle is warmed up thoroughly. It's going to change in the summer months versus the winter months, right? Be aware that you never fully stretch a cold muscle. Get the blood flowing first. Maybe just go for a walk on the treadmill for a few minutes, but never try to really stretch a cold muscle. That's where injuries happen. Yoga and Pilates and basic stretches are awesome choices. Find one that you like. I'm a big fan of yoga. Right? Yoga is awesome for stress reduction, which is such a major problem now. I recommend people shop around and find a type of yoga, a yoga instructor that you're really comfortable with, and give that a try. Right? Stretching also makes you less prone to injury and makes decreases in pain. Now, something else that stretching does, it also helps you recover from workouts. If you had a particularly strenuous workout, maybe you did some yard work and overdid it, a construction project, right, something around the house, then make sure that you stretch, because that's going to speed up your recovery from a strenuous workout. Balance training. As I mentioned earlier, this is something that becomes very, very important as you age, because this decreases the chances you will fall down. Training should make you feel the need to resist wobbling or tipping over. That's probably misphrased there, right? If you feel like you tend to wobble, you tend to fall down a lot, then you need to focus on balance training. Among older adults, this is particularly 65 or older, falls are the leading cause of injury and death. In general, it works if somebody falls and has a break, like a hip, for example, it tends to lead to what's called a downward spiral, right? They and some people never recover from that downward spiral. So be really aware, have self-awareness. Where are you in the balance thing? Are you have good balance? Are you bad balance? Where are you? Utilize balance tools like the Bosu ball. Some of you don't know what that is. That's that half moon looking balloon ball type thing you see at the gym. It lies flat on the floor, right? It has a flat surface and then a rounded concave surface that you can stand on, and it provides a little balance challenge. Balance discs are a very similar type of tool. You can just stand on one foot, right? Make sure you have some wall or some type of handle next to you so you can catch yourself if you do lose your balance. But practicing does increase your ability to balance better. And again, hold on to a stable object, practice it regularly, because your inner ear, all the balance mechanisms, your muscles, they all get better with practice doing balance. You can test yourself with, in fact, here's an easy test for you to do at home, anywhere. Make sure you're someplace safe to do it. Excuse me. But it's called a stork test. Just stand on one leg and the other foot goes like it stands like a stork, where they press it against the leg that's standing, and see how long you can do that. If you can't go 30 seconds, probably need to practice your balance a little bit more. Excuse me, just my throat getting a little bit dry here. So we talked about workstation stretches. A lot of these are done standing. You can do a stand and reach, like you see our model in this slide right here. Neck stretches, the one on the bottom there, I do like. Another version of that is and you can do this seated, by the way. You can take, for example, your left arm and grab the bottom of your chair. Take your right arm, put it over the top of your head, and slowly and easily tilt your head towards the right, away from your left arm that's holding onto the chair. Right? You can feel that really good stretch across your shoulders. And the neck stretches are so important because of the amount of time we spent seated in front of a computer now. Right? Most jobs require pretty extensive periods of doing that. So that's something to be definitely aware of. Standing and stretching is some more right here. A seated hip stretch. This can also be done lying on your back. Right? You see the model with the purple mat there doing that. That is a hip stretch where you're crossing your leg across the other one. Again, standing or lying version is excellent. It really gets those small muscles in the hip, the gluteus minimus and medius, that we don't really use a lot during the course of a day. And if you don't use a muscle, it tends to get very tight and very short. It wants to be elongated and used, right? Shoulder stretches, grabbing your arms behind you, leaning against the wall, things like that. Those are very, very important. Especially you want to focus whenever you're stretching on the middle of your back. That's that other trouble spot aside from your neck that gets very tight when you're in a seated position in front of a computer. All right. Calf stretch. You see the model on the right there with the brown shorts and Brown doing that one. Why is that one so important? Well, for the guys out there listening to this, guess what the number one injury is for men, orthopedic injury, for men over age 40? Well, that's a calf tear, an Achilles tendon tear, which is mandatory surgery and months of recovery. So keep that in mind, that what she's doing there, she's stretching the back leg that you can see, the furthest one away from the wall is the one getting the stretch. And then she could actually shift. And that position right there is an excellent one, because now then she can push forward with her hips, and she's actually stretching the deeper muscle on the front foot. Right, so both of those are going to be super important. Right, so the calf stretch, I can't emphasize it's a small little muscle, but let's face it, that's the one that keeps us in touch with the ground, right? And if you tear that muscle, it gets too tight, you're going to suffer consequences on that one. So all of these, and I'm going to slowly wrap up here. And again, this is the time if you have any questions. And how does the EAP help with any of these issues, right? Number one, these tools, and what's astounding to me, I'm doing a lot of these presentations, is how much of these things are available but unused by individuals. Okay? So, face-to-face counseling sessions, financial and legal consultations, child and elder care consultations, referrals, daily life resources, ID theft recovery, becoming unfortunately more and more necessary these days, free credit monitoring, My Strength, there's a health club for your mind, talking about depression. Now, harkening back to our talk today, as you know, a lot of these issues revolving around stress and anxiety are directly connected to depression, right? So I can't emphasize that point right there. Super important. Um, and in a conversation I had very recently in a presentation, it came up that often throughout our workday, we interact with lots of people. Our body language knows if something's wrong with somebody, right? It said that we intake up to 80 or more percentage of communication comes from non-verbally. We pick up cues from other people. We sense things from other people. And so we know, probably instinctually, if somebody's going through a tough time and are showing the signs of stress, anxiety, and depression. Now keep in mind, anxiety and depression are seldom seen alone. If somebody is suffering from one, they are often suffering from the other, right? And this all ties back to our topic today, right? It is interactive. People who exercise more frequently are less prone to stress, anxiety, and depression, right? This has been shown in studies. So take a look at the comprehensive website there, the resources, the self-assessments, the health and wellness library. A lot of the information that I've presented, very similar to this, is available for you there, right? And all the, of course, then is legal forms as well. So I hope we're able to tie all this in together. Don't ever consider fitness and workplace workouts to be separate from the mindset, and make sure that they are combined together. They are not separate ones. Okay. Some of the things to take away from this. I'm going to scroll back through these slides here so you can see some of this. This is examples of stuff that you can do right now. What are these things that we spoke about today? I wanted to make sure we get through the IEP, the EAP information. So what can we do of all the things we looked at today in the workplace? Now there's the one on the right here certainly is in the workplace, right? So the stretching is capable. Now the other one looks like it may be in a yoga studio somewhere, but certainly flexibility is an option to be done in the workplace. And you see those examples there, right? Balance training can certainly be done in the workplace, right? If you have any questions on this one, let me know. If you do a quick search, by the way, and I've done this before, on particular balance exercises that don't require equipment, you can find those on YouTube in a flash. I suggest you write down 5 of them and bring those to work with you, okay? Flexibility, again, we talked about the stretching in the workplace. I want to go back to strength training more and more, which is great to see. When I'm out on a corporate site, I'm seeing well-equipped exercise gyms on site. You see more and more of that now. It used to be back in the old days that if you had a fitness center in a workplace, it was just loaded with threw a bunch of treadmills in there and called that a fitness center. Okay, that is changing, fortunately, for the better. Where you're going to find more weights, you're going to find bands, you're going to find kettlebells and all those equipments that you can use. In fact, if you have your own band, you can do just about any type of workout that there is. And as we've talked about today, it really doesn't take any more than 20, maybe 30 minutes to get a really good, vigorous workout in the middle of the workday, or just before the workday, or just at the end of the workday. Okay, so all of this can tie in to schedules. All right, cardio is probably the easiest thing that we can address in the workplace in general. Why? Because if you don't have a fitness center, and then you can get outside. Cardio is something that doesn't require equipment, and it can be done anywhere. In fact, wait, Art, we don't have a fitness center with cardio equipment. If the weather's too cold in the winter, we can't go outside. Well, you can do body weight exercises in a circuit fashion in any conference room and have a very, very thorough workout in less than half an hour, right? We've seen it happen all the time, and that's all it takes to increase your cardiovascular health. Cardiovascular, by the way, just so you know, a little side note, cardiovascular fitness increases quicker than just about any other trait that we have. That is, it could take you a long time to develop really strong upper body, right? But it does not take very long to improve your cardiovascular levels very, very quickly. And in fact, as I remember reiterating earlier, cardio exercise is the preferred method for weight loss initially. Over time, do you need to add muscle mass through strength training? Absolutely, right? So it's a nice balance among all those things. So keep that in mind. Cardiovascular exercise is the easiest one to implement. So if you take nothing away from today, if you're not an exerciser, I hope that you'll start. Just start with 1 day a week. Don't overdo it. That's a common mistake that people do. Say, how do I get started? 1 day a week. Just get out there, pick the nicest day, or pick a lunchtime where you know you're going to have an extra couple of minutes, and you can carve out 20 minutes and get in the treadmill if there's an exercise room there. Make sure you start with 1 day a week. If people overdo it, they get too sore and injured, and then they go away again, right? They get off that bandwagon and stop. So then work up to 2 days a week, and then maybe move it up to 30 minutes, right? There's small incremental improvements are the way to make this part of your workday life, rather than trying to do too much all at once. And that's, in my experience, been what people mess up the most. They try to do too much too soon, turn their lifestyle and their regular habits upside down in order to exercise again, but it doesn't work, right? We tend to fall back to our old patterns. So small incremental changes that we can win with, right? Celebrating those small wins that we can stick with are far and away much easier path to success than trying to do a complete upheaval of our lifestyle, right? And any more questions on any of those? Don't forget, include with any workout these 4 elements, and all of them, as we've just talked about, are capable of being executed in the workplace, right? You do not need a commercial gym. You don't need to be at your home. You can do these just about anywhere, all right? And don't forget your nutrition. Now, as a certified nutritionist, my job is to help people make small little changes. And so I would do it this way. So where can I start? I have a terrible diet. Where do I start? Well, here's what I recommend to people. If you want to lose weight, let's say weight management is an issue. I'm going to wrap it up with these couple of quick points for you. Number one, you want to watch out for what I call the white foods: bread, rice, cereal, pasta, crackers. I say that to some people and go, hey, you just described my entire diet. But if you can pick one of those and cut back on one of those, in fact, I had a conversation with a client this week that said, well, she's not ready to give up bread, but she eats cereal for breakfast every single morning. I said, well, cereal, no matter what the cereal is, has very minimal nutritional value. Could you plug in something like an egg for breakfast rather than the cereal? She said, well, yeah, I can do that. I said, good. Well, if you could do that, that's a win. That's a win for the week. And you've already started on your path. That's all it takes, is to make a small change like that. She got rid of a processed carbohydrate, plugged in a natural food, and that's a huge change over time. How your body treats that processed carbohydrate versus that protein is a massive difference. It may not sound like much, but it's extremely important. So start with a small change when it comes to nutrition, right? Don't go crazy with it. These people who say, well, I'm going to cut out all those processed carbohydrates, I'm going to cut out all the alcohol, I'm going to cut out, okay, those people are setting themselves up for failure. One small thing done consistently every day will make a huge difference. Here's a real world example, my final note here. If you take example, one average glass of wine has about 130 calories. Now, if you have a glass of wine, if you have 3 or 4 glasses of wine a week, or let's call it that second glass of wine, if you do the math on that one, right, that's 120, 130 calories times, let's say, 3 glasses a week. You're already talking nearly 400 calories a week. Times that over the course of a year, 52, you've lost a couple of pounds of body fat just by cutting back a single glass of wine. So it adds up quite a bit. And the reason I emphasize I'm finishing on nutrition here is because that's the one area where there's so much misinformation and so many poorly read studies or poorly executed studies. The media does not help because they like sound bites, not science. So you'll hear stuff coming out all the time. Oh, now eggs are bad for you. Next week, coffee is going to be bad for you. Well, some of those things swing back and forth. And first of all, neither one of those things are true. Eggs are good for you and coffee is good for you. So, I mean, just you have to do a little diligence, do your homework. How about this for a final way to track your nutrition. Stick with foods that have one word ingredients. I don't know if it can get much simpler than that, right? Eggs, broccoli, chicken, salmon, right? Any food like that that has one word ingredient, you know you're probably not you're probably gonna do pretty well. Okay, so that was covered a lot of ground today. Absolutely, this presentation. This one touches on everything from all those four elements of a workout to the nutrition to everything. So it's quite a bit of category, quite a bit of ground. If you need to listen to this recording again, it is being recorded for you. Any questions, you can post them here. All right, and there's the number and the website for the EAP site for Anthem EAP, and Plow and Heart is the password that you'll be using. I hope you walk away with some action items from today, and it's been great working with you. Good luck, and we'll talk to you soon.